Hello and welcome to the Soul Ashraya podcast, a weekly bhakti podcast where we seek the shelter, the wisdom, and we study the Shastra of our dear Lord Krishna. Through Shastra prayer and meditation and conversation, we study about Sri Krishna. I am Bhakti Jake, and I am joined with my friend and teacher, Balaram Shakti Das.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You know, after, let's see, what is this? The 16th episode? You'd think I'd be able to say that without without completely just putting it in the pepper shaker and grinding it up all over everything, you know.
No, that's good. Just let it come out as it will naturally.
Oh my goodness. So hello everybody. So nice to have you with us. Welcome to our podcast, our 100% really professional podcast that we do weekly, Saturdays and Sundays at about 2:00 in the afternoon Eastern time. Balaram, what are we going to be getting into today, my man? You're looking good.
Oh, thanks, Prabhu. We're getting into the Krishna book.
Sounds good.
As we have been reading from. Wrapping up the first chapter, which is exciting. This is a fun part of the story. It's been pretty heavy material. It's actually like it's gonna get even heavier, but it's also a little comical. So that's nice.
Yeah, I actually did read ahead a little bit on this one just to kind of finish out the chapter. And if anybody asked me to just do a quick outline, like just kind of summarize what the first chapter of the Krishna book is about, I really don't know if I could give them a straight answer or not, because it was kind of all it was kind of hard for me to understand exactly what happened. I guess if I had to, I would say that something happened with between Devaki and the demonic lord there. Well, I guess he's just a demon, really. Kamsa, right?
King.
And oh, he's a king, but he's like a demon king. He's like king of the demons. Okay.
Well, he's king of a royal line.
Okay.
It just so happened that a demon infiltrated the royal line.
Oh, okay. Yes. See, I apologize, Prabhu, because I feel like we, when we go back and I think it's just a good idea to go back and kind of refresh. That's all.
We should do that every chapter when we get to the end of this recap.
Yeah, because there was actually, this really seemed like it was really kind of action packed. Like there was kind of a lot going on. There was the wedding.
Well, go all the way back, rewind all the way. There's the prayers of Bhumi to Brahma and then to Vishnu, right, to relieve the burden of the earth. So that was, and then that kind of set the stage, and then Prabhupada setting the stage for the birth of Sri Krishna, the advent, as far as just kind of laying out this royal line, which is in Mathura, and then the wedding, or the after wedding, you could say.
Right. The wedding was kind of a grand spectacle. and there was a lot going on there. Um, it makes me question, Prabhu,
Hmm.
the is this happening? So this is actually all happening on the earth.
Yeah,
Okay, the earth as we know it, but this is more than 5,000 years ago or just 5,000 years ago?
5,000.
5,000, okay.
Yeah, Vasudev, Devaki, Kamsa is 5,000 years. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that is what we have for like the earliest, some of the earliest recorded history goes back 5,000 years ago.
For
Or,
modern scientists,
okay.
as far as they're publicly declaring. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Are
don't know if
there,
we can do that. Which we
well,
could.
I'm wondering if do we have any scientific evidence or proof of things being older than 5,000 years old on this planet right now?
Time. Yeah, you can look up Michael Cremo's Forbidden Archaeology. It's a huge scientific textbook that gives just unlimited archaeological finds. He's an archaeologist and as well as disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I believe disciple of Srila Prabhupada, but he's a devotee scientist. And it's like, it'll make your head spin how much. I think there's an abridged version as well for people who aren't, interested in writing scientific papers, just for a layperson. Yeah, which I haven't seen. I haven't read either of those books, but I've seen him in interviews talk about this stuff. And the idea is that what we call science, people say this, it's like they get really up in arms, like, I believe in science, right? Whether or not they're even, religionists, like you should believe in science, science is our friend. It's like, okay, well, I do, but this isn't science. What we're doing isn't science. Coming up with a hypothesis and looking for evidence that supports it and rejecting evidence that doesn't support it, that's not science. That's dogma. So a lot of evidence has been found that proves, or that I should start with, that disproves Einstein's theory of evolution. Disproves pretty much all of the theories, scientific theories, namely that humans, humans evolved from apes and that they're only such and such years old. There's much older evidences. There's, finds of giants, which our scriptures say, yeah, each previous age successively, humans were larger and larger, more advanced, more sophisticated, that it's not that humans, it's not a kind of evolutionary theory, that life comes from matter and that humans are a product of this biological evolutionary phenomena, right? And that we are gradually becoming more civilized is totally bogus. We're actually gradually becoming less civilized. We're becoming more like animals. And it's kind of ironic that we identify ourselves with animals in that way, because that's what we're trying to become. The naturalists, they say we have to get back to nature, be more like the animals. It's like, do you see what you're saying there? Whereas, the Vedantists, the religionists will say, no, we didn't come from apes, we came from God, and that life cannot ever come from matter. It doesn't matter how advanced you become in science. Ask any scientist if they can produce a single-celled organism in a laboratory. They can't do it. They should be able to do it. Why do they even admit that they can't do it? They should at least try to claim that they can.
Right. Now, I think you said Einstein, but you meant to say Darwin.
Did I say Einstein?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's okay. I knew what you meant. I just wanted to clear that up before we went any further, is to clear that up, is that I think there is some writings that speak about how Darwin on his deathbed just reclaimed everything he said as he was dying and was like, no, absolutely not. I made it all up. We basically like glued skulls together to prove all these things. Crazy stuff that is not, yeah, dude. I think it gets even darker than what we really even need to get to on this podcast, because I'm not even gonna go there. I'm just gonna tell everyone to check it out for themselves, because during the time of Darwin's life, I'll just say that Australia was being colonized as well. And there's a lot of like unspoken history about what happened there, and how that everyone was like going to Australia because supposedly there were dinosaur bones in Australia and stuff like that. And it's like these guys did everything to like back up this belief that to back up Darwin's scientific belief, and I kind of even want to kind of move on from that right now, because I mean, there's so much money and so much power tied up in what these guys like the agenda that they're pushing, that I think maybe even just for our own safety, we should just kind of move on and just say we don't agree with it, but we're going to move on and just believe in God instead. And that's going to be where we stand. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah. So let's do that.
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I've heard of Michael Cremo though. I have.
Yeah, I forget his initiated name. As opposed to, there's like this ascending theory, and this is a good like general principle to understand, is because this is atheism actually, in different forms, in different dresses, that we are building up to something, and you can either believe that something is totally void, that it's like we just make it whatever we make it, like life is what you make of it, right? You whatever you want to believe, you can believe that, and then you basically your life becomes a big indoctrination, and at some point you're going to have a midlife crisis, right? That you wake up to the fact that, wow, actually what I took on, what I tried to make of my life is pretty flimsy. I couldn't produce the life or the world that I read in the magazine that I would have if I just did what, the instructions said. But then you just compromise, like, well, I guess, no one ever really gets that, or, somehow you have to resolve that, dissonance. And ultimately what that leads to is voidism, is this idea nothing's actually real,
Yeah.
but you're growing
make up your own truth, just.
Yeah, there is no actual absolute truth. Moral relativism, it's just whatever you decide. And there's not actually something that we are ontologically moving towards or teleologically moving towards, right? Teleos means like an end. There actually is something. Can you think of an example of that? Like a flower, or a plant. It's like, it sprouts out of nothing, and it's got a couple bud, it's got a pair of leaves, and then more leaves. It's like, oh, it's just, and then it starts like bending maybe. So like, it looks like it's just like creating its own thing, but actually there's a design.
Yeah.
In printed, it's blueprint. and its DNA is there. So the question then is there a human blueprint for like our ultimate end, or is it just evolution, that we're just evolving, changing as per the needs of the species? Right.
So here's something that kind of ties into what we're talking about.
Okay.
That I wanted to ask you about. Okay. So, and I don't mean to like completely derail your whole train of thought, but I saw this last night on Etsy, and I wanted to get your opinion about these things that they're selling on Etsy. Okay.
Oh gosh.
So,
okay.
So check it out. This is what they call a Vishnu Saligram, a Mahavishnu Saligram, Saligram stone. Have you ever seen one of these?
Most every temple have them.
Yeah, it's like that.
All right, Krishna.
Yeah. So can you speak to that? I have never heard of these until last night, and I was just browsing on Etsy for some Tulsi beads, and it came up. Is this interwoven into what we're talking about right now, or am I like
no?
or is that a good move?
Let me just finish my thought first.
Okay.
So yeah, this idea of like building up versus like coming down, right? The ascending method or the descending method, right? This is something, if you can understand this, you will be light years ahead of the pack, in spiritual life. Because it seems like ascending method makes more sense, that like I have to create something or build something out of nothing, and pull together all these things, as opposed to your spiritual perfection, your spiritually perfect body is waiting for you in a dormant state, and you simply have to reawaken it. It's not that you have to create it, you have to put it together yourself. It's you just have to download it, in a sense. So like the scripture is the descending method, because it's coming from on high and it's giving you the codes, in a sense, using this lingo. It's nourishing the seed. The blueprint is there, you just have to water it. So that's the process of bhakti. Bhakti is directly watering the seed. It's not concerning itself with all of these extraneous, call them superfluous or subsidiary processes of bolstering or like creating or building, which is called karma jnana anavritam. Because these things, avritam means to cover. So you're actually covering, you're hindering your spiritual advancement by getting caught up in these other pursuits. But if you don't know that there's something transcendental, that's already there for you, then yeah, you're left with what all of us were left with, in that stage. It's just like, you got to kind of find it, make it up as you go, piece it together. But if you try to piece together, something spiritual, you can't. That's not spirit. Spirit is achintya, meaning it's beyond the intellects. It's beyond your ability to piece together. It's only by God's grace that you can attain that. So that's the descending method. So in the same way, like evolution, it's following the same train of thought that we have to piece together, and that's what we're doing collectively. Is we're piecing something together, and it's very like fragile, and it's really on us. It's like totally on us. There is no grace of God that can intervene with this. There is no higher power, and that's just another concoction that we have produced in order to like coping mechanism. And so everything is just a mechanism of matter, of biology. you see, whereas the descending method is no, it's God's grace. Everything that comes from God, because life can't come from matter. Life means consciousness. Consciousness is distinct from matter. We've seen that, and God is ineffable. God is supreme, and ineffable means like it's not something you can figure out. It's something that will just descend on you. We call that grace, and that's something that you have to experience for yourself. You can't prove it in a laboratory that God is real. That's another way for the mind to try to piece something together. It doesn't work that way. So, but science is also making advancements in its ability to recognize different things. And so, archaeological finds are showing, okay, there were humans that existed millions of years ago. How do we explain that? Our current models can't. So most scientists just reject it. And, I don't take so much time to study this stuff. Others do, who could tell you a lot more of this sort of thing, but I think that's sufficient.
Yeah.
So the Saligram Sila is a form of the Godhead. And this is a very difficult thing to understand. It's not something I'm like super learned about. But the idea, well, let's see. These are holy stones. We'll start with that, right? So in this world, we can experience two things. One is material energy, and the other is spiritual energy. And again, material energy is, that's just your mind, senses, intelligence, false ego. These are things you can kind of wrap your head around in a sense and dissect and just understand, okay, this is material energy. Whereas spiritual substance, you can't put under a microscope. It's something that touches you and it will reveal itself to you by grace. And so bhakti is the watering process of opening our heart to receiving that grace, right? And then the plant grows. What happens when the plant grows? It's able to take in more and more nourishment. More photosynthesizers, more roots, right? So likewise, as you develop your spiritual life through bhakti, and that's a universal principle. It's not just saying our, tradition of bhakti. Bhakti is a universal principle of nourishing the soul, most principally through hearing and chanting. So the more that you do that, the more that God can reveal himself to you. And ultimately, the end of that is the perfection of existence. When that plant fructifies, it bears fruit. The real fruit of the Spirit is pure love of Godhead, which has all of its various symptoms, right? And so the Saligram Shila is a form of Krishna. And so the more that we cultivate spiritual vision, the more that we'll be able to see it. And so there may be a few like material scientific ways to determine, but the real way to determine is a sadhu. Upon seeing it, touching it, he said, yes, this is a living stone, and the presence of God is in this stone, right? It's alive. I think one way that they can determine materially that it's alive is that tiny microbes will actually consume it. So you'll find little like in a log, when the creatures bore those like patterns on the log, right? I think the same thing happens with these stones. So it's not just inert, there's some life force in it. But ultimately, it's a form of Vishnu. And those who are able to see Vishnu with spiritual eyes, they'll say, that's a Vishnu, right? It looks like it's just a normal stone. It's actually Vishnu. So it's therefore a deity. It's Archa Vigraha, meaning form of God in a like a material form, if you will, like generally a statue, either a statue, an image, icon, you could say, or a shila. Let's see, there's Saligram shilas, and then there's another type of shila. Oh yeah, Govardhan shila. So Govardhan shila means stone. Okay, so another type of shila are the Govardhan shilas, which are the stones that are found at Govardhan Hill, which is sacred place.
Yeah.
And I would say that's like it's definitely a pinnacle of this book that we're going to read, is the Govardhan story.
Yeah.
Story of Govardhan.
Yeah.
And so those are also, and the idea is that's directed to Krishna more than just, Saligram shila, that's Vishnu, but Govardhan shila, that's Krishna. So it's considered the second most holy place in the universe. Govardhan. So these are Archa Vigraha, that means you can worship them directly as God, right? So these stones, they're not to be bought and sold. That's
really?
I would say. If you're seeing them on Etsy, just do not take any part in that. That is against the code, if you will. And every devotee knows that. And whoever's selling those, Lord have mercy on them, because it's very sinful to sell a shila. It's like you're selling God in a marketplace. Like, you can't do that. Krishna's allowing these things to happen because he's allowing all forms of karma, to give us total free will to do this sort of thing. But just imagine, just think about that for 2 seconds, like how demoniac of a sin is that?
Yeah.
To like the pretense, the audacity to sell God, to put a price tag on God. That's a form of good. You can't you're saying God is worth $20. How much is it?
There's all kinds. They got all different kinds, all different colors. They're ranging from like $65 to like $350, $400, depending on like what it is. Because it describes, there's different colors, and each color represents something different. And it's like there's like a pretty lengthy description about each one, but like you could definitely buy one for like $100 for sure. You could buy one with this description.
There's a really nice story that Prabhupada told, that like a little fable. Yeah. So a man is going to retire, right? He's had a successful business life. And so he's like, family members, going to Vrindavan, the holy place of Krishna, right? This is my wish. Time has come. I'm leaving my business in my son's hands, and you don't need my help. I'm getting very senior in years, and so the only productive thing for me now is just give my life over to Krishna. And I say, oh, okay, Dad, that's very nice. He says, so I'm leaving you my life savings, all this. Just send me 200 rupees every month, and the rest is yours, right? My dear wife and children, right? And 200 rupees is like nothing. That's not even $3, right? You could get a good quality I guess, this story is from several decades ago, so you could get a lot more 200 rupees back then. The idea is, it's just a bare minimum. Maybe like 400 rupees a week or something. You might be able to live off of that. Anyway, family's like, okay, Hari Bol. And so he goes to Vrindavan, and what do you expect Krishna to feel about that? So Krishna goes, okay, I'm 200 rupees to you. Very well. You are also 200 rupees to me.
Wow.
right?
Oh, geez.
So you give Krishna 10%. Krishna says, okay, for me, you are also 10%. But you give Krishna 100%. Krishna says, okay, for me, you are also 100%. I am all in.
Wow.
So if you say, yeah, Krishna is worth $100, Krishna's like, okay, to me, you're also worth $100. In the span of eternity, that's nothing. Nothing. So shilas are only to be given. They can only be received. They cannot be purchased. You can't purchase Krishna. The only way to purchase Krishna is actually, it's stated, intense spiritual greed to attain him. You have to, totally give your heart 100%. You can't just say, oh, I have, by material means, I've acquired certain resources and now I can just buy him. You can't just buy him. Anyway, yeah.
So are people buying these? I mean, somebody is buying these. Are people buying these?
Yeah. They just don't know better. They haven't. What's that?
Are they buying them because they think that it's a deity and they
know
think,
it's
well, oh, right. But
or they don't know. They're just like, oh, that looks cool. Something, from Hindu culture. I could get into that.
You can buy deities though, right?
That's another thing. It's like you definitely can buy deities just out of necessity, I think. Because we're building temples, and so we need that. The idea is that through our devotion, that deity is becoming Krishna. Whereas with a Shila, it's already Krishna. And so it's like once you buy a deity, you can't sell it to someone. It's like once you buy a deity and install it, it's not like, oh, I've worshipped this deity for a while now. It's reciprocating with me. Let me sell it for $1,000. It's like, what? No, you can't do that. That would be so offensive,
Right.
But if you need to pass it on, then you do that. You pass it on. So likewise, these Shilas, it's already Krishna. So they're, passed on in loving exchange in which the super soul manifests in your heart and directs you who to give him to, right? A super soul, and this happens all the time. We hear stories of this, where the super soul, meaning the form of God in our heart, right?
Yeah.
Who's giving us knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. He tells people like, I want to be worshipped by this person now. Happens all the time. Jagannath Puri, we might have mentioned this on a previous show, like that the pujaris, they have dreams all the time, and there's actually records going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of the dreams of the pujaris, the priests who are worshiping Jagannath, this deity, because he's very involved in this world. Jagannath, very active deity. It's said that Lord Gauranga, oh, that's right. That's maybe this where I was hearing this, this lecture. Who's more merciful, Lord Jagannath or Lord Chaitanya? This is like, it's one of those like imponderables for the devotees. It's like what happens, when it's like Chuck Norris versus, well, before the movie came out, it was like Bruce Lee, right? That was the question that everyone wanted to know, It turns out Bruce Lee, by a long shot, but it's like, so who's more merciful? Because they're both like the incarnation of mercy. So it said that Lord Chaitanya is the most merciful avatar, but Lord Jagannath is the most merciful deity. So in his avatar form, Lord Chaitanya is distributing mercy to everyone. Whereas Lord Jagannath, it's in his deity form, he's distributing mercy to everyone. Because he's going out on the Rath Yatra.
Yeah.
So like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that Rath Yatra that they have over in Puri, you sent me some pictures of that. That was, yeah, I was really blown away by those pictures. Those were good pictures.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think I was able to get back to you with the expression that I was feeling when I saw those pictures, because that was so, it just blows your mind that so many people are out there doing that, and how they just, like, there's videos
Shut
of
down the
it
whole
now.
city, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
You
just
have
a
to.
sea of people, and that, and they're all, and that's how, I mean, that's Pori though, I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, central,
Right.
that's like the center of it all, really. So yeah, but that is amazing. And so it, like, this whole Rath Yacha thing is being new, once again. I mean, these are all things, I didn't even know that there was like a season for it. Like, this is a ongoing, continual thing. And they say that, like, this is like the whole season. So basically the summertime is like the season to have these Rath Yachas, and which makes sense, I guess. Absolutely.
Yeah. It'll be outdoors.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Well, should we get into the book?
Let's do it. All right.
We've talked about everything else under the sun.
Yes. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtai Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschada Deshtarne Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Okay. So I have it marked on page 18. At the time the great sage Narada came to
Yes.
Kamsa. Yes, right there.
Yeah.
Let me get the screen share up. And would you like to read, or do you want me to read?
All right, I can start.
Okay.
At that time, the great sage Narada came to Kamsa. He was informed of Kamsa's becoming compassionate to Vasudeva and returning his firstborn child. Narada was very eager to accelerate the descent of Lord Krishna as soon as possible. He therefore informed Kamsa. Okay, so let me just put a pause, just because that's an important sense. That'll make sense for this. So first of all, Narada is one of the sons of Brahma. He's also a totally spiritual personality. He was born of Brahma, but he was already liberated from his previous birth in a previous creation, actually, like a totally different creation. And so now he just travels around material and spiritual universes, glorifying Krishna. And he always gets, oh, that's right. I was wondering if we had mentioned him before. We mentioned him with the Rath Yatra story, right? He was the one that appeared before Krishna in that Jagannath form. And he asked Krishna for the benediction that the whole world could see him in that form, right? So he's just always showing up at the right place at the right time. That's the adventurous quality of the life of the devotee, right? So he shows up. He had heard that Kamsa was being compassionate, and he said, good for you, Kamsa, but there's a higher principle at stake here. We need to get Krishna on the planet, so I'm going to trick you. And this is pretty far out what he does. So he therefore informed Kamsa that in Vrindavan, which is where Krishna's family is from, personalities like Nanda Maharaj and all the other cowherd men and their wives, and on the other side, Vasudeva, his father Shurasena, and all his relatives born in the family of Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, along with all their friends and well-wishers, were actually demigods. Right? We had read that in one of the first episodes that Krishna instructed, Vishnu instructed, that Krishna is going to come, and I need all of you demigods to take birth in the Yadu dynasty to assist him, right? So Narada straight up spills the beans on the whole thing. And he warned Kamsa to be careful of them, since Kamsa and his friends and advisors were all demons. Demons are always afraid of demigods. After being thus informed by Narada about the appearance of the demigods in various families, Kamsa at once became very much alarmed. He understood that since the demigods had already appeared, Lord Vishnu must be coming soon. He at once arrested both his brother-in-law Vasudeva and Devaki and put them behind prison bars. Another very interesting point here is if the demons are afraid of the demigods, why did Kamsa entertain Narada? Narada is known as Deva-rishi, meaning sage amongst the demigods. He's like the most exalted demigod in a sense that he's the most saintly personality in the universe. So why it wasn't Kamsa like, you're one of them, you're telling me this, but you're one of them, you must be tricking me also? Because Narada is a pure Vaishnava. So this is an opportunity to understand just how exalted a Vaishnava is. They are so exalted that they're actually transcendental to this whole material world of quote unquote good and evil. They're so transcendental, they can walk into any party and people will feel like they will have total trust in them. I can trust everything that this person's saying. So yeah, Kamsa received Narada, knew that Narada is a Vaishnava. He's like a perfect personality, spiritual personality. He never bothers anyone. He always is looking out for everyone's interests. I can actually listen to this guy. Pretty amazing. So he listens to Narada, and the result is super heinous. He arrests Vasudeva and Devaki. All right, I'll read one more and you can take it. Okay. Within the prison, shackled in iron chains, Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to a male child year after year, and Kamsa, thinking each of the babies to be the incarnation of Vishnu, killed them one after another. He was particularly afraid of the eighth child, but after the visit of Narada, he came to the conclusion that any child might be Krishna. Therefore, it was better to kill all the babies who took birth from Devaki and Vasudeva. Actually, it's explained in the Bhagavatam that Narada was talking like this. He's like, these demigods, they're up in higher dimensions. They don't really think about time the same way we do here, right? This is
yeah.
So to them, like first child, eighth child, it's all this. It makes no difference to them. They're in a higher dimension. They don't see things in terms of linear time.
Yeah.
So funny. And Kamsa's like, that's a good point. Why would they? To them, eighth could be on a totally different metric. like the 8th tallest or whatever. Like it could be any of them. So it's pretty atrocious. He kills every baby, sometimes like right in front of him, just like right in the, I don't know if it says it in this book, but like right in the prison room, Vasudev hands over the baby, just grabs him by the ankle and smashes him on the floor, Pretty ridiculous. Yeah, pretty brutal period of life for Vasudev and Devaki. It's real persecution. All right, Prabhu, unless you have any other comments.
No, I knew that this was going to get kind of brutal today, though. But what do you expect from demons, right? I mean, that's why they're demons, I guess. So, yeah, I'll pick up right there for you. So this action of Kamsa is not very difficult to understand. In the history of the world, there are many instances in the history of the world of persons in the royal order who have killed their father, brother, or whole family and friends for the satisfaction of their ambitions. There is nothing astonishing about this, for members of the demoniac, greedy royal order can kill anyone for their nefarious ambitions. There you go. I mean, dude, we've seen it.
Godfather 2.
Oh, dude, yeah, perfect. I was thinking like, just like all the stuff that happened like in the 15th century, 16th century, like in England, like the whole history of the monarchies in England and all the double crossing and everything that they did back then, it's crazy. So, okay. So going forward here, so Kamsa was made aware of his previous birth by the grace of Narada. He learned that in his previous birth, he had been a demon of the name Kalanemi, and that he had been killed by Vishnu. Having now taken his birth in the Boja family, he decided to become the deadly enemy of the Yadu dynasty. Krishna was going to take birth in that family, and Kamsa was very much afraid that he would be killed by Krishna, just as he had been killed in his last birth. Well, yeah. Here, I'll read on too. He first of all imprisoned his father, Ugrasena, because he was chief king among the Yadu, Boja, and Andahaka dynasties. And he also occupied the kingdom of Surasena, Vasudeva's father. He declared himself the king of all such places. So so this guy's still making moves right up till the end of the first chapter. So thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first chapter of Krishna, the advent of Lord Krishna. So Kamsa is still making moves because he's a demon and he's out there trying to do demon things. Now, is there a record somewhere of his last life and how Vishnu killed him? Is that somewhere in Shastras somewhere?
I'm sure there's a story behind every personality.
Yeah.
Those would be found in the Puranas.
Yeah.
Or Itihasas, but yeah. I have never heard of him. Yeah, I've just heard that he was a demon in his previous birth.
Yeah. Do you think he killed him with the Nila chakra? I think he just went. like a laser.
Maybe.
That high-tech technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it's
That's what I would do.
If you were God.
Lila chakra.
Yeah. It's interesting that he took birth after being killed by Vishnu, because that never happens. So obviously this is Krishna is desiring for this soul to be a part of his Lila. Lila means beyond, like outside of the realm of the rules. It's like what's another way of saying that? You're not bound by the rules in a sense. So Lila, in reference to Krishna, which is the proper context of Lila, it can also be used in a mundane sense, but we don't, not concerned with that. So Lila means Krishna is doing his thing. So there's four things. There's Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. So these are the manifestations of divinity as will be revealed to you through spiritual absorption. So we enter into spiritual absorption through the holy name of God. So that's the first is Nama. So the first thing that will manifest to you is the name. And you will, it's achintya, right? It's beyond the intellect. So it's, we can't understand how a name or a sound vibration can be a revelation, or how we can actually like see it with our consciousness, right? The idea is that through our material senses, Nabhaved, Grime, Indra, these Sri Krishna Nam Adi, meaning these name, form, qualities, and pastimes, which is what these four words mean. They don't manifest to the material senses, and I think I've referenced this verse before, but Seva Mukhe Jivadao, Swayam Eva Spiratida, that by service, Seva, by serving Krishna, which begins with the tongue, by chanting and by imbibing the remnants of the Lord, his mercy, his prasadam, those spiritualized foodstuffs, that is the service that will, set the whole thing in motion, where your consciousness becomes purified, of the material sense experience, and your spiritual senses will come online, and your spiritual senses will be able to behold the name of God as it is, Swayam, as it is. So name, then from the name, the form of that name will manifest. So if you're chanting Hare Krishna, form of Radha Krishna will manifest in your, innermost heart, in the inner sanctum, if you will. Form of Krishna will manifest, and this form is described in the scripture. The name is described. There's so many names, and the form that these names have, like what color garments he's wearing, what kind of earrings he's wearing, what he's holding in his hands, is described by those who have had this vision, this spiritual vision. And likewise in the qualities, his sense of humor will be there, will manifest in your consciousness. You'll experience that directly in seeing him, his intelligence. Right?
Have you ever seen that dance that they do? It's like it's like there's dance moves, like that's the food. Yeah, and then those are the
peacock feathers. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And but there's a certain way they move them a certain way, and that means, so that's Krishna. They're describing Krishna in a certain form. It's not just like a bunch of like movements with no meaning. They are describing Krishna like with the way that they move their hands, and yeah, it's so beautiful. I love all that dancing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing.
Because when you do that, or just seeing it, it like reawakens something deep in your consciousness. Like there is a unconscious memory of Krishna that everyone has. So when we see the tilak on the devotees, when we see the shika, it reminds us of Krishna. We all know who Krishna is. We've just completely forgotten about him, you know. And so when we see these things, like there's a very, I mean, this is very interesting. This like mudras, you know, they have, there's actually like something to them that your consciousness understands. Your body, mind, like it understands it, and it does something. Just like the keyboard on this laptop, each of these keys does something. I may not understand it, but if I just start pressing buttons, you know, weird stuff is going to happen. And Jake's going to be like,
you should do that right now. You should.
No, I don't want to do that.
Do it.
No. It's like you were saying the other day, like your kids were on the computer and you have no idea what they did, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Seriously, the other day, like Street Fighter came up in the background. I was like, oh, the kids are messing around with their computer again. And there are just a million little boxes for all this stuff. And I was like, oh boy, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine then if like, I don't want to use the example of Bill Gates. Not our like favorite person, but if someone who was like, I mean, in the sense that he's the creator, like he made these operating systems. Yeah. If something like that came in and started pressing buttons, some very interesting things would happen, right? Some things that were very much pertaining to you. So this is like descending. Ascending is just like, let me just press a whole bunch of random buttons and I'll form hypotheses about like, if I do this, then this. Whereas if the creator comes in and says, no, do this, you know. So it's like, you know, do like, try to remember, you know, just do these things and like gradually it's like awakening something. So qualities are there. And then the Lila is the activities. So these forms, also part of the qualities, is included in the qualities is the devotees, the entourage. And so, and then that entourage, like you'll see like, oh, there's God, and then, oh, there's Vasudeva and Devaki, right? Or Nanda Yashoda, like there's his family member, like God. Part of the quality of a person is the other parts of their heart, you know, meaning their relationships, right? That's like, you can't have your qualities as Bhakti Jake cannot manifest in full in a vacuum, right? Your form might be able to exist in a vacuum, but as soon as you introduce qualities, you know, other persons necessarily are part of that. And then what speak of your activities? They are totally within the context of those qualities and personalities. So that's the spiritual world. That's totally above the realm, you know, of material activity, material cognition. You want to say something?
Just what you named 4 things earlier, and one of them was Namaha, right? Name.
Nama.
Right. Nama, and then what were the other 3?
Rupa. R-U-P-A.
Huh?
Guna. G-U-N-A. And Lila. L-I-L-A. They're all 4-letter words.
Okay. And these are qualities.
These are manifestations of divinity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody should be taking notes like I am, by the way.
Yeah, totally.
Taking notes.
He's like, what? Who's down there?
You're not going to learn this in high school. I'll tell you that right now.
No, you don't.
No.
They leave that one out of the curriculum.
Yeah,
they should have that in there. What are the 4 manifestations of divinity? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sadly enough, that is literally right to the last second. That is all the time we have. But we did finish chapter 1.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting excited. Oh man. Yeah. Now let me ask you real quick. Have you seen the guy with the watermelons? I don't know if you're up on Instagram or all that stuff. There's this guy. He cuts a watermelon in half and he holds it up and he goes, ah! He's like world famous from doing this on Instagram now. There's like all these, he sells this fruit in India, like on the street. And there's like a whole there's a whole group of these people that do this thing in a certain way. And now they're like famous. Anyway, I feel like that guy with the watermelons right now.
Okay.
And then he like starts hitting his head with a pan and he goes, oh la la la, oh la la la, oh la la la, oh, just like that. I guess you'd have to see it. I'll send it
pretty silly.
Or maybe I won't.
Don't.
Okay, we'll skip that one.
All right.
Mukunda know though. Mukunda knows what I'm talking about.
Did I finish explaining that though? Of like, outside the realm of the rules. I mean, I guess that it self-explanatory, but these are manifestations of divinity. So this is totally beyond our realm. So when we see that, because this whole book this is the point, this whole book, it like the subject matter is entirely Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila of Krishna, of the topmost manifestation, the topmost name of God, of the Godhead is Krishna. So the topmost forms of Krishna, and there are multiple forms of that name, as will probably be explained, because Krishna can expand himself at will. And then the qualities, and the whole book is just his Lila. So that's right. That was the point, is that Kamsa somehow or other has gotten roped into Krishna's Lila. And the point is, the way that we know that, well, first of all, he's in the book, of Krishna, but it's also that the general rule is that if you're killed by Vishnu, you're immediately liberated, right? If you've awoken any affection for Krishna, you'll go to the spiritual planets. This is really nice point. We were talking about this the other night. The battlefield of Kurukshetra, right, where the Bhagavad Gita was spoken.
Yeah.
Everyone on that battlefield had the darshan of Krishna. It means they were able to see the Godhead at the time of their death. Now, depending on what kind of consciousness they cultivated, they were given a respective form of liberation. So if they didn't have any affection for Krishna, they were given impersonal liberation, wherein they merged into the light of Krishna's effulgence. If they had just an inkling, just a little grain of affection for Krishna, they were given a spiritual body, right? Which is in a dormant state for all of us there in the spiritual realm. And if they had a lot of affection for Krishna, right, then they would go to Krishna's planet.
Gokula Loka.
Yeah, go Loka.
Go Loka.
There's Goloka and then Gokula. Gokula is the reflection, if you will, the embassy on the earth planet. So Kamsa, or Kalanemi, was killed by Vishnu, but instead of giving liberation, he got something better, actually. So this is another alternative. You could either go to the spiritual worlds, or you could go into Krishna's Lila, which is sort of like a doing like a dry run, or like a training wheels lifetime, in order to kind of acquire the appropriate consciousness for living in those spiritual planets. You take birth in the Lord's Lila. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're in this world and you do some devotional service and you think of Krishna at the time of death, if you're very advanced, you might just go directly there. But generally what happens is in order for the Lord to like refine you and get your consciousness prepared to join him, and also for him to increase the drama, the dramatic tension, increase the love, really, to deepen it. This planet is a very good place to do that because of the dualities, because of the struggle, the challenge. It makes relationships of love stronger, right? So you enter into the Lord's Lila in a material planet, could be this planet, could be another universe, could be anywhere, where the Lord has advented. You take birth there, you participate in his Lila, and that's already the spiritual world, but it's sort of like a liminal space between this world, still in this world. It's like going to college. Some people straight out of high school, they just go into their life, right? Whereas other people, it's like, no, you have a special adhikar, you have a special qualification to enter a higher echelon of this world, of society. So we're going to put you in the university, get you this special training, then you'll go out into your life. So, right, that's a nice example. So Kamsa is getting this special training, which is a very peculiar one, because he's actually perfectly Krishna conscious in one sense, that he's always thinking of Krishna, but not in a favorable way. So it's not pure bhakti that he's practicing, but
no,
it is a form of bhakti.
I wouldn't say it is pure bhakti when you're like killing kids, like killing baby after baby after baby for like what, a year, 2 years? How long were they down there for?
8 years.
8 years?
Something like that, yeah.
How was she getting pregnant? How was she getting pregnant? Was it like just
they're in their own cell together? Imagine that, living with your wife in a prison cell, chained up.
How are you gonna?
Where there's a will, there's a way, Prabhu.
I guess. Anyway, okay, let's. So, perfect. All right, that's our time for today. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you later. No, this is intensely interesting, and yeah, I guess so. So, I mean, if that, I just have to kind of keep on reminding myself that we are not the first people ever on the earth to read this book. Other people have read this book and they already know. They're just watching this to see like this absolute new guy try to understand these transcendental truths, I guess, or maybe, and I hope so. I'm helping in my own weird way. So anyway.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. So okay, let's all right, so let's kind of end it right there. And so what do we have to look forward to in chapter 2? What is about to happen? We'll get past
chapter 2, prayers by the demigods for Lord Krishna in the womb.
Okay.
So Devaki's gonna, well, we'll get into that, but Krishna is going to come into Devaki's womb, and it's like, it's like Christmas Eve for the demigods. So they're gonna all gather around and start giving their respective prayers to Krishna, kind of like final requests, final glorifications, final offerings before Krishna appears.
Okay. Yeah. I certainly look forward to that. We're going to get into that tomorrow. And so
yeah, this is a very interesting chapter.
Yeah, so chapter 2 is coming up. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your like and subscriptions and views to our YouTube channel. And thank you so much for watching us and for putting up with us. And let's end by just saying the Maha Mantra 3 times, and then we shall adjourn until tomorrow, my friend. Go ahead and lead us off, brother.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
All right. Hare Bol, everybody. Hare Bol, my friend.